But shortly thereafter, an incident occurred that caused the United States to enter World War I, which was the result of the next two incidents caused by Germany. The first was Germany's unlimited submarine operation. During World War I, Germany indiscriminately attacked anything it deemed an enemy in order to break through the British naval blockade and gain control of the sea. One attack resulted in the sinking of an American ship and the deaths of Americans on board. The second event was a telegram from Germany to Mexico, in which Germany secretly asked Mexico for help in case the United States ever went to war. It was said that Mexico would get back the territories lost to the United States in return for the help that Germany wanted. The contents of the telegram, secretly sent by Germany's Foreign Minister Zimmermann, was soon made public. As the contents of his telegram were revealed, the whole world was shocked, and the United States, which could not remain passive in the face of these threats, entered the war against Germany. The situation changed in an instant when the US began to deploy troops in earnest on the European front, and soon the United States and the Allies won World War I. After the war, the United States, which had been victorious, began to enjoy an economic boom. Factories were producing their products as cheaply as possible and surpassing their competitors. The problem was that because there was so much production, there were not enough people to buy the goods. So there was a phenomenon in which goods piled up excessively and were not sold. As a result, factory owners had to lay off their employees one by one. In other words, the United States only appeared to be enjoying economic prosperity on the surface, but the reality was chronic overproduction and soaring unemployment. In this way, complex problems gradually piled up in the United States. So, in the end, stock prices plummeted on the New York Stock Exchange, and the United States faced the Great Depression. 1 in 3 people in the city lost their jobs. The economic woes were indescribable. The Great Depression spread rapidly beyond the United States and around the world. The Great Depression caused a collapse in prices, reduced production, and paralysis of economic activity. President Franklin Roosevelt, who was elected during this unprecedented emergency, responded quickly to this crisis. The government tried to deal with the crisis by implementing the New Deal policy to adjust the economy by actively intervening in economic activities. Britain and France implemented a bloc economy, selling excess goods to the colonies at very low prices and imposing high tariffs on goods from other countries, preventing them from being imported and bought at all. In other words, it was a protection trade in which the home country and the colonies were united into one bloc to protect the domestic market. Meanwhile, Germany, Italy, and Japan, which had no colonies, faced the problem. So Germany, Italy, and Japan adopted the totalitarianism of bringing their people what they needed, even if they had to invade other countries to overcome this crisis. These countries believed they could use violence for their own gain. In 1939, with the German invasion of Poland, World War II began. The United States resisted entering the war and remained neutral again, following its isolationist tradition. But as Britain began to lose to Germany, Churchill continued to appeal to Roosevelt for weapons and ammunition. Churchill persuaded Roosevelt that if Britain were to lose, America would have to face a united Europe under Nazi rule, in which the Nazis would be much more powerful and better equipped, so America should help fight them now. Roosevelt responded to Churchill's appeal by promulgating the so-called Landing of Arms Act. He loaned tanks, fighters, and battleships to any country if it was deemed necessary for the defense of the United States. And when the war was over, the bill stated that help would be returned in kind, not cash. Meanwhile, Germany's ally Japan, continued to invade Asia. So, in order to deter Japan, the Allied camp, led by the United States, built the ABCD encirclement network that bans the export of strategic resources to Japan. ABCD stands for American, British, Chinese, and Dutch. For Japan, which relied on the United States for 80% of its oil imports, the US oil export ban was a huge blow. The corner of Japan attacked the United States by surprise. Angered by this, the United States entered the war in earnest in World War II. In this way, the United States won the war in 1945. After defeating Japan and Germany, helped by its overwhelming productivity. Although the US was successful in removing German influence after World War II, the next goal was to stop the spread of communism from the Soviet Union. In the 20th century, when communism in the Soviet Union began to spread rapidly, President Truman, who could not stand by passively, implemented a policy promising economic support to all countries that reject totalitarian rule. In other words, if any country opposed communism, it would receive political and military aid. Among others, the United States intensively supported Western Europe, which had been devastated by World War II. As the United States began to actively intervene in global policy, the existing tradition of isolationism was naturally abolished. In 1962, the psychological warfare between the United States and the Soviet Union reached a climax, and the threat of a Third World War arose as the Soviet Union secretly built a missile base in Cuba, just south of the United States. The immediate situation of the Cuban Missile Crisis was resolved through an amicable agreement between the United States and the Soviet Union, but the only country capable of responding to the Soviet Union was the United States, demonstrating its power to the world. In 1964, when the United States, with its overwhelming military power, entered the Vietnam War, it dropped weapons of mass destruction such as napalm bombs and used defoliant chemical weapons. As time went on, civilians began to be sacrificed indiscriminately. And as the anti-war movement grew in the United States, the government eventually decided to withdraw from Vietnam. The US government also announced that they wanted Asian countries to deal with themselves, expressing their will to no longer intervene in Asia if the US suffered serious damage in the Vietnam War. This policy was known as the Nixon Doctrine. As time passed, changes in the international situation accelerated, and the two countries began to feel burdened by the 10-year confrontation between the United States and the Soviet Union. In response, President Nixon of the United States implemented a policy of détente to try to reach out to communist countries and alleviate this conflict that had continued for years. The intention was to seek a path for mutual coexistence while maintaining the basic competitive structure. So US delegations visited China and then the Soviet Union. US President Nixon visited the Soviet Union and China and promised to ease trade restrictions, reduce production of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles, and cooperate on space exploration projects. In 1991, the Cold War between capitalism and communism came to an end with the official collapse of the Soviet Union, the largest socialist state and leader of communism. Since then, the United States has greatly influenced the world's politics, economy, and culture, and has remained as a superpower that shapes the world to this day. But over time, China has been on the rise within the framework of a free economy and trade system laid down by the United States. China has risen economically is challenging the hegemony of the United States. How to deal with China, which is challenging the hegemony of the United States, is a task for the United States and the West to address in the near future. along with resolving Russia's expansionist war against Ukraine,